Link, it's your boy Ink. Welcome to our show. Today we're also having a wonderful day on this 14th April 2025. Today is Monday, today is my weigh-in. I'm excited. Before that, we're doing some videos. The video today is The Irishman. So a movie with Robert De Niro. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed that movie. The Irishman to me was really, really good. There's a lot of flaws to the movie, but there's a lot of like pros, and I gotta say Robert delivered. Oof. I was a huge fan of Robert De Niro. I was a fan of him. So we're talking about movie like Taxi Driver, talking about movie like Fighting Bull, talking about movie like Casino, talking about movies like The Goodfellas, talking about movies, a lot of movies, right? Talking about movie like Eat. But then he made movie like, well, the fuckers are good, but he made movie like Dirty Granddad, where he said the N word, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude, you know? And it's kind of nuts because this movie, The Irishman, was kind of like a back to the roots, right? So the movie is a gangster movie, right? And we saw it. Now the first thing I'm gonna say about The Irishman, dude, it's 3 hours and a half, right? And it's long. But then when you think about the best gangster movie, right? We're talking about The Goodfellas or The Goodfellas. Think about the Godfather. The Godfather is 3 hours each, right? There's 3 movies of 3 hours each, kind of like a Lord of the Ring of the world of gangsters. So the fact that it's long, it's good. Now, technically speaking, the life of the people changed. So, for example, when a movie like that came, like the Godfather, people had a lot more time, right? They were going to the movie, and it was an afternoon, right? We're gonna go eat at the restaurant. We're gonna go to see the movie, and then we'll just chill, right? So watching a movie that's 3 hours and a half was worth it. But now the busy lifestyle and social media, blah 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 blah, we don't have the time. So the movie in itself feels a bit long at times. It feels a little bit long. It feels a bit long because the movie is long. It doesn't feel a bit long because there's not narrative, right? But what is really cool about the movie is talking about a guy who is retired, right? So he's talking about his story. It's like a biography, right? Now, what is really cool in there is there's a lot of terms for historic, right? So the coronation of John F. Kennedy, the coronation of Nixon, Jimmy Hoffa. There's a lot of historic fact for a gangster, right? Now, the reality is how much of them are true, how much of them are not true. I couldn't tell you. I'm not an expert when it comes to gangster movie or mafia movie. But there's a lot here. There's a lot here that is kind of great. There's this kind of the negative is we're getting the same casts. So you think about all of those fucking gangster movie, right? And you're seeing the same guy, Al Pacino, what's the name of the guy who played in Home Alone, the small guy? Not Danny DeVito. No. I don't know his name. Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci. Yeah. Really good actor too. Robert De Niro. We're talking about a lot of those guys that we saw in a gangster movie. So it does feel like The Irishman is trying to reproduce the magic of the mafia movie. Now, ultimately speaking, what I really enjoy about the mafia movie is La Via Nostra, which is basically the code of honor of the mafia. Right? And the code of honor of the mafia is so good because you're thinking that they're only gangster, but they had pride. They had a code of honor. And again, when it was at its highest was possibly after the Second War. Most of these mafia guys were people that learned how to live through the army, learned the values through the army, so they kept the values, right? So The Irishman feels like that. There's a lot of like good moments. There's a lot of feel-good moment. For example, they're stealing a meat truck, and then it's like, "Yo, you're talking to me." Or there's this moment where he gives shit to Robert De Niro, like, "You're talking to me like I'm a fucking dumbass," right? And then there's also this. The Irishman, to me, is possibly one of the most completed mafia movie. So I've watched it a couple of times already. I think the most beautiful thing is, of course, you got the mafia, right? And it's something that we saw, right? That's something that we really saw. And then of course you get it's very fat, right? And if you know your shit, you know your shit, right? There's a lot of moments in the movie where it's really nice because, for example, right, the main character, which is Robert De Niro, has a daughter, right? And then there's 2 characters, which is Al Pacino, which is supposed to represent Jimmy Hoffa, and you got Joey Pesci, who plays this gangster, right? And I don't remember the name. I'm sorry. So the daughter of the main character is afraid of Joey Pesci, right? but she sees Johnny Hoffa as this Jimmy Hoffa. Sorry, I'm tired. Okay, I'm tired. She sees Jimmy Hoffa as this hero, right? And then you got this almost. It's a beautiful thing because there are two gangsters, right? One of them is an enforcer, one of them has a tie. They're both crook, they're both criminals, right? So the way she's perceiving them, and I think there's a lot of romanticizing for the mafia. I think a lot of small guy or young guy saw that, and they were like, "Yo, I'm really interested in that," right? And then you got a movie like Goodfellas, which in my opinion, was a bit better because the Goodfella was a dude that was from the start. He was into mafia, right? He had a shitty home family, so the mafia became his family, right? And the Irishman, I think the flaw of the Irishman is we start out. Yes, it's the beginning of the mafia journey, but it's not the beginning of the guy's life, right? The guy has lived a couple of life. There's also a problem with time. So you're gonna see this guy from I don't know maybe 20, 30 to late 70s, right? And although the movie is 3 hours, it feels like we're missing stuff because they're not showing his whole life. They won't show his whole life, right? The movie itself is good. Of course, it's a feel good movie. So it's a movie. How can I say that? It's complex. I think it's a movie that if you enjoy, okay, it's a movie that follows the footsteps of other gangster movie, of other mafias movie. I think if you like mafias movie, you have to like Irishman. However, my problem with Irishman is if it was my first mafia movie, I don't know if I would like them. I don't know if I would like that. I don't know. And if I was to recommend a first movie, I would go with the Goodfellas. I would go with Goodfellas. I would go with Casino, right? And I would go with Irishman. And there's also this kind of like, it's a shame. I think the movie has an even bigger flaw. So when you see the character of Robert De Niro, right? He's the Irishman, right? And then in Goodfellas, there's the same thing that happened, right? Oh, I cannot get made because I'm Irish. I'm not, cannot get made, and I cannot be one of the top guy because I'm not Italian, right? And I have to be Italian. So it's always the same character. It's always the same Irishman, and you're telling the story, yes, much more details, but we heard this story before, not once, not twice, but multiple times, right? So it does really feel, and it would be good if it was another cast, because you're using people like Al Pacino and you're using people like Joe Pesci, and those guys are amazing actors for sure, but you're using the same fucking cast, and because you're using the same fucking cast, you're in a position of I've already saw this. So although there's little moments of the movie, there's very little moments of the movie where you're like, okay, well, these feel like deja vu, right? And it's okay. It doesn't matter if it feels like deja vu. It's all up here that matters, right? However, when you have a 3 hours and a half movie, those little moments of deja vu, right, adds up. And at the end of the movie, you're in a position where I saw a new movie, but I feel like I saw it, right? And now the problem with this, but that's the problem with historical event. So when you make a movie with a historical event, what you're gonna do is you can't change history, right? So you're gonna be talking about certain event, right? For example, but the way they did it is actually really nice. So for example, it's like they're taking John F. Kennedy and they're saying, oh, he was elected through mafia money, right? And then this is something that we saw in other movies. Those are rumors. I don't know if it's true, but something that is being spoke of. But then in this case, they're taking a confessional from Robert De Niro when he's a lot older, and it does like a little comments, like for example, and that's what I love about the movie, right? There's little comments of, and that is actually quite nice. I think this is like one of the strongest plots of the movie. There's a comment like he put in behind bars. He went after the guy who got him in power, and then he's like, and then he takes a break, and he's like, "What's up with that?" Right? And this is brilliant because you cannot change the history. You'll never change history. However, you can change how people perceive history, right? You cannot change how I'm teaching. The math will be math, French will be French, English will be English. Science is science, right? You got textbook. What matters is what changes the teacher, and the teacher is the important part. So really, really good. Good movie. Would I recommend it? I don't know. Great movie, but very niche. Yeah.